I'd like to hand it over now to another professor from CUNY, from Hunter, Professor Calvin Smiley.
On a move, free Mumia, free them all. Welcome everybody, and thank you for having me, particularly the CUNY for Abolition and Safety, the release for aging people in prison, my fellow speakers, and all of those who are in attendance. So I'm really just inspired by what I'm hearing today and what everyone's saying. You know, a lot of what I've heard so far are things that, I was gonna say, so I'm not gonna rehash those same sentiments, but, I really wanna just emphasize that we're really living in a moment where we can see transformative change. And that starts with how we even contextualize what we're pushing for, and making sure that we push back when we hear elected officials, CUNY officials, admin talk about reform. We are not fighting for reform, right? Which is oftentimes reductive and unimaginative, but we're really fighting for this abolitionist paradigm that really gives space and truly radical change through revolutionary ways to replace outdated, archaic, and draconian forms of so-called justice. So, I always liken it to, we never heard of slave reform. That wasn't what the fight was. It was about slavery abolition, right? You cannot stop short, because what have we seen reform give us? It's given us body-worn cameras. Let's just rehash the trauma that we all have to collectively view these murders. We've seen bias training, which all of these officers who killed George Floyd had. We've seen diversity training and diversity in police officers. Well, 2 white officers and 2 officers of color killed George Floyd. So again, just giving reform as a Band-Aid is stopping short of true forms of change. When we think about prison exploitative labor, as our speakers have already said, the 13th Amendment gives that loophole. But we can even take it back further than that. When prisons started, some of the earliest prison writings have shown that prison labor was exploitative. If anyone's ever heard of Caleb Smith's book, The Life and Adventures of a Haunted Convict, by Austin Reed, who is the earliest known Black imprisoned person here in the state of New York. Caleb Smith notes that even from the start, as he writes, quote, "From the start, though, the society hired out the boys and girls to private contractors who set up manufacturing and shops. The inmates made shoes, rope, mats, brooms, and other simple commodities." So, the 13th Amendment might have solidified what we see, but it was actually much longer. And then the last thing I'll say is, we really need to think about what justice and accountability looks like. We've seen this idea, even from yesterday, that many of us right here in this room and beyond have complex feelings, right? Both grief and joy, pessimism and optimism, relief and anxiety because of that verdict. Our emotions are complicated, complex, and oftentimes not linear. So we really have to think about what accountability looks like. And as we've heard a lot of people saying, this wasn't justice, this was accountability, I would even push back further and say this was not accountability. Accountability would be putting the police force on trial that allowed a person to even get to that point where they could kill someone. So with that being said, I just want to say free them all. People like Mumia, who've been locked down for 40 years, others like Leonard Peltier, who've been locked down for 45 years, others like Assad Shakur, who've been in exile for damn near 40 years. And these are folks who've been locked down longer than I've been on the earth. So, we always have to contextualize that. So to the CUNY for Safety and Abolition and the release of aging people in prisons, thank you for having me. And once again, on a move, free them all.